This is the skinny fat solution specifically for Asian guys. To be clear, I am half Asian, so I've experienced problems specific to Asians along my journey from skinny fat to ripped that you need to know how to fix. The first problem is that Asian genetics make you more susceptible to higher levels of fat and lower levels of muscle. And there are three ways. The first is that Asians tend to have lower maintenance calories. What maintenance calories is the amount of calories that your body burns every day just by existing. So the average male burns 2,500 calories every day at rest, whereas Asians would tend to be on the lower end of that average and might be burning closer to say 2,000 calories. So because of that lower maintenance calorie level in Asians, it means that you're more susceptible to get fatter and overweight because it's easier for you to overeat on calories, meaning you're going to be more likely to be in a caloric surplus, which means that you're gaining weight. So for example, let's say the average European male has a maintenance calories of 2,500, whereas an Asian male might only have a maintenance calories of 2,000. Now, if both people were to eat the same amount of calories at 2,300 calories, the European male would actually lose weight because he's in a caloric deficit, whereas the Asian male would gain weight because he's in a caloric surplus. The second thing is that Asians generally have lower levels of muscle mass, and that contributes to that lower maintenance calorie level that I was just speaking about. When you have more muscle on your frame, your body burns more calories at rest, meaning your maintenance calories is higher. The third way is that Asians are generally shorter as well. So it means that the fat that's on your body has less surface area to be distributed over. And that gives you the appearance of a chubbier, softer look compared to a taller person with the same level of fat as you, but they just have more surface area on their body to distribute that fat over. So the solution to this is that number one, you need to cut and be in a calorie deficit. And number two, you need to start training, lifting weights immediately. So there is this kind of debate as to whether you should be cutting or bulking as a skinny fat person. My view is that you should cut. The reason being because you're going to see positive feedback in the fat that you're losing and seeing the number on the scales continually go down and down week on week. And because you get that positive feedback from seeing yourself leaner and looking better, you're more likely to stick to the habits that got you there, like clean eating and training in the gym. And that's beneficial in the long run because you need to be consistent in those habits to actually get jacked. Now, compare that to the person that bulks. They're going to add weight and get fatter than they already were. And sure, they might be putting on more muscle, but they're doing it at the cost of gaining extra fat. That's actually making them look worse. And so therefore, they're getting negative feedback and are going to be less likely to stick to those habits. And as I said, you need to be consistent over the long term to get ripped. You also need to start lifting immediately. This is for two reasons. The first being that having more muscle on your frame is going to make you just look better. So for example, if you take a guy that weighs 80 kilos and he has 60 kilograms of muscle and 20 kilograms of fat, his body fat percentage is 25%. And if he were to just merely add 5 kilos of muscle, but his fat mass stayed the same, his body fat percentage would actually go down to 23%, despite not even having lost any fat. So by the mere fact of adding more muscle, you're going to appear leaner and more aesthetic. The second reason is having more muscle on your frame increases your maintenance calories. And that makes it easier to be in a caloric deficit so that you can lose fat. However, building muscle will take time. And so increasing your maintenance calories will also take a bit of time. To be able to burn more calories, to make it easier to be in a caloric deficit, you can focus instead on what's called increasing your active calories. So, active calories is the calories that you burn through doing exercise, cardio, and your general movement levels that are above the calories you burn at rest. So, if you were just to take more walks and instead opt to walk to places instead of driving, you'd be increasing your active calories. You can also do things like incline walking on the treadmill or running if that's your thing. And by increasing your active calories, you're going to make it easier to be in a caloric deficit without having to starve yourself. The second problem for Asians is that the Asian diet is not conducive to high muscle and low fat. In Asian meals, and I know this because I am half Asian, the protein levels tend to be lower and the carb levels tend to be higher. In meals like rice, noodles, and soup, the carb element of the dish is always the most significant, whereas the protein can often be quite small. And that is problematic because having a high protein diet is essential in fixing the skinny fat physique. You need high protein, number one, to build more muscle, but also number two is that protein is the most satiating macronutrient. And so by eating more protein, you're going to feel fuller and less likely to overeat on your calories, which means it's going to be easier to stay in a caloric deficit and lose fat. So the solution to this is just increase the amount of protein that are in these types of meals. It doesn't mean you have to completely sacrifice eating your beloved Asian food. I certainly don't want to give that up. But simply just by adding more meat to the meals that you're already consuming can help some of those issues with the Asian diet that might have caused your skinny fat physique in the first place. The other thing with the Asian diet is that the cooking oils used in Asian food are often seed oils. So seed oils are any oils that are extracted from the seed of something. So for example, canola oil, sunflower oil, and vegetable oil. The harmful thing with these seed oils is that they actually reduce male testosterone levels. So there's this thing called the omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acid ratio in your diet, which plays a key role in testosterone production. And when that ratio is thrown out of whack, which is what seed oils do, it can lead to inflammation of areas of your body, like your brain and your testes. And when those areas of your body are more inflamed, you produce less testosterone. So the solution is to avoid seed oils as much as you possibly can. I know it's very difficult because it's quite ingrained in the Asian cooking culture, but try to substitute those seed oils for non-seed oils like olive oil, avocado oil, or coconut oil. You can also use butter, ghee, or beef tallow to cook your food in. And if it's your mum or your dad that cooks the food for you, urge them to not use seed oils. By avoiding seed oils, you're going to be increasing your production of testosterone, which is going to make it a lot easier to build muscle and lose fat. The third problem is that Asian culture tends to emphasize academics and work over fitness. So we all know that classical stereotype that Asians study the hardest and work the hardest in their careers. But perhaps all those hours that are poured into studying and working come at the cost of health and fitness, because it means that you're likely more sedentary, have lower levels of activity, which is going to contribute to a lower calorie burn every day, which makes it a lot harder to lose fat, but also easier to gain fat. You might also feel like you have less time to exercise and go to the gym and lift to actually build a decent level of muscle. I think the solution to this is you simply finding the time to go to the gym or do some extra cardio or increase your general levels of activity throughout the day if it's something that you actually want to improve on. Because apparently the average screen time of someone is like 6 hours. So although you may be an extremely hard worker in your academics or in your professional life, I'm sure you can find an hour to spare to go to the gym or go for a walk. That culture of working and studying extremely hard, I think also means that Asians tend to get less sleep, because I feel like it's a very common thing for Asians to be staying up extremely late to 3 a.m. studying or working, because that's just the culture. But that means your sleep is being severely sacrificed. So the first thing is just ensuring that you're getting enough sleep, 7 to 8 hours. But the thing is that even if you're getting that 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night, I feel like it comes on a bit of an irregular schedule. So you might be going to sleep very late, say at 3 a.m., and then waking up at 10 a.m. You might be getting 7 hours of sleep, but it's not aligned with your circadian rhythm. So there have been studies that show humans' sleep quality is better if their sleep and wake times are aligned with sunrise and sunset. So that means if you go to bed closer to the time the sun sets and wake up closer to the time the sun rises, the quality of your sleep improves significantly. And so if you're going to bed at these irregular times, your sleep quality might actually be being sacrificed. And that leads to lower levels of muscle and higher levels of fat. They've done studies on this. So if you decide to try and change your sleep schedule to align more with the sunrise and sunset, it might be difficult at first, but please just stick to it. It will get a lot easier because your sleep schedules adapt quite quickly. Might only take a week. But if you are struggling, consider a supplement like magnesium to assist with you falling asleep and waking up. So if you learned anything from this video, please consider subscribing because we are getting to 5K subs soon. And I will see you in the next one.